AI minds, quantum leaps. Cut the noise, dive deep. Truth unlocked. Dr. Mike on the mic. Tech Unfiltered is on the clock. Now it's time for the show.
The United States government says it has finished a new framework for deciding when an artificial intelligence model becomes powerful enough at cyber operations to deserve special attention. The framework is voluntary, the technical benchmark is classified, and the public hasn't been shown the surrounding rules. That combination makes this an important story and a complicated one. On August 3rd, 2026, the White House said a multi-agency group completed the framework required by Executive Order 14409, signed on June 2nd. The order allowed 60 days for the work. Axios and Reuters reported the completion independently, both citing a White House official. The first distinction to keep clear is that this is not a government license to release an AI model. The executive order explicitly says it does not create mandatory licensing, pre-clearance, or permitting for developing, publishing, or releasing new models. Participation is voluntary. That word matters as much as the word testing. So what does the order actually set up? There are 5 connected steps. First, several federal agencies are directed to maintain a classified benchmark for advanced cyber capability. The work involves the Treasury Department, the National Security Agency, and the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, with input from White House science, national security, and commerce officials. Second, that benchmark is supposed to determine when a model crosses the threshold and becomes what the order calls a covered frontier model. In plain language, that means a model with sufficiently advanced cyber capability to trigger the process. The National Security Agency director makes that determination in consultation with other federal cyber science and defense officials. Third, a developer can ask the government whether a model under development meets that threshold. Fourth, a participating developer can give the government access to a covered model for as long as 30 days before releasing it to other trusted partners. The order calls for confidentiality, cybersecurity, insider risk, intellectual property use, and non-disclosure protections. Fifth, the government and the developer can select trusted early access partners that may use the model to strengthen the cybersecurity of critical infrastructure. The intended logic is straightforward. Imagine a new tool that can find weaknesses in many digital locks. Before that tool is shared more broadly, government cyber experts and trusted defenders get a controlled look. Hospitals, banks, utilities, and other essential services may then have time to repair vulnerable systems before attackers can use similar capabilities. That is the strongest case for the framework. Attackers move quickly, and defenders often learn about a weakness after damage has begun. A common benchmark could give everyone a shared yardstick instead of letting each company design and grade its own test. There is also a serious accountability concern. A secret, voluntary framework is difficult for the public to evaluate. Voluntary participation means a company may decline. An unpublished process means outsiders can't yet tell whether the rules are rigorous, consistent, or fair. Some secrecy is understandable. The benchmark concerns offensive and defensive cyber capability, which can involve sensitive intelligence. Publishing exact test questions could also encourage developers to optimize for a benchmark instead of real-world security. But secrecy about technical questions is different from secrecy about governance. The government could still explain who makes decisions, how conflicts of interest are handled, whether a company can appeal a designation, how model access and test data are protected, and what happens when a model performs above the threshold. As of today's reporting, many important details remain unconfirmed. We don't know the capability threshold. We don't know the scoring rules or the consequences of a concerning result. We don't know which companies helped develop the process, which have seen it, or which have agreed to participate. We don't know whether the government can persuade a company to delay a release. We also don't know how open weight models, foreign developers, or smaller American companies will be treated. Axios reported that company representatives were invited to a staff-level White House meeting on August 4th. Industry participation can be useful because the companies building these systems understand their technical design. It also makes independent oversight important because some of the organizations being evaluated may help shape the process. Another qualification matters. The trigger in this order is advanced cyber capability. This is not a general test of whether a chatbot is truthful, unbiased, emotionally safe, or likely to change employment. Those are separate issues. A model could perform well in this cyber process and still have problems in other areas. Describing this as proof that an AI system is broadly safe would go beyond the evidence. For most people, nothing changes in an app tomorrow. The effects, if the framework works, will be indirect. A model rollout might shift. A vulnerability patch might arrive earlier. A rural hospital, community bank, local utility, or school system might receive better security guidance. Or a public dispute might begin when a developer declines to participate. The framework also sits inside a broader federal cybersecurity effort. The executive order calls for stronger defenses across national security, defense, and civilian government systems. It directs agencies to form an AI cybersecurity clearinghouse with industry and critical infrastructure operators. The goal is to coordinate vulnerability scanning, validate discoveries, prioritize repairs, and distribute patches. It also asks officials to look for grant funding for advanced vulnerability detection and to expand federal cybersecurity hiring. Those pieces matter because a benchmark alone doesn't repair anything. The practical value comes from connecting a warning to people who can act on it. If a model discovers a serious flaw in widely used hospital software, for example, the useful outcome is not a high score. It's a validated report, a protected notification process, a patch, and enough time for hospitals to install it. Voluntary programs can still influence behavior. Companies may participate because government review builds trust with enterprise customers, because critical infrastructure partners request it, or because declining creates reputational risk. At the same time, participation can favor large firms with dedicated security and legal teams. A smaller developer may have a capable model, but fewer resources for a 30-day government process. Clear rules and reasonable access will matter if the framework is meant to cover the frontier rather than only the largest companies. Data protection is another practical concern. Pre-release model access can expose valuable intellectual property and sensitive testing information. The order requires safeguards, but the public details are thin. Developers will want assurance that model weights, system documentation, vulnerabilities, and test results are tightly controlled. The public will want assurance that the same confidentiality rules don't become a reason to hide avoidable mistakes or inconsistent decisions. There are 4 practical questions to watch. First, which companies participate and will the public be told? Second, will the government publish non-classified governance rules, even while protecting the benchmark itself? Third, what happens when a model performs above the covered threshold? The real measure will be whether a result changes a release plan, security guidance, or defensive preparation. Fourth, do critical infrastructure defenders receive useful tools and patches? Or does the process remain a private conversation among a few large companies and federal agencies? My careful inference is that the federal government wants a standing relationship with frontier model developers before the most cyber-capable systems are widely shared, while avoiding a mandatory licensing system. Whether that relationship changes real-world behavior will depend on participation, credible testing, and meaningful incentives. The bottom line is balanced. Early warning about cyber-capable AI is something defenders genuinely need. A classified benchmark may be necessary, but completing a framework is not evidence that the framework works. Right now, we have confirmation that it exists, along with important gaps about participation, oversight, and consequences. The next test is practical. Does this process help defenders prepare before a dangerous capability is released, while protecting innovation, privacy, competition, and public accountability? Keep an eye on who participates and what happens when a model crosses the line. That's where the policy becomes real. I'm Dr. Mike. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.